Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and I'm here with my co-host, Pragati Jain.
Hey everyone, welcome today to a session on Datamarts.
Hi, Pragati. So how have you been?
Oh, good, good. Happy to wrap up my day today because I'm on holiday tomorrow, so I've got a long weekend.
Oh, very, very, very jealous.
So yeah,
Definitely very
make me
jealous.
happy today.
Although we have just had a little bit of a break, haven't we? So we've taken I believe it's a 2-week hiatus
Yes, yes.
to recharge our batteries and come back and bring some more fantastic sessions. So hopefully our audience, please do let us know where you're joining us from. Those of you that are UK based, hopefully you're like myself and Bragatti in trying to beat the humidity at the moment.
I have a fan. Leon doesn't have.
No, I don't. So it's going to get very, very, very warm. But that being said, like I do say, please do let us know where you're joining us from. We want this, as always, to be a very interactive session. So please do feel free to ask questions throughout. And this is another exciting topic. We're going to be taking a look at exploring the Power BI Datamart with fellow MVP Marcus Wegener. So I'll just give a bit of a background on Marcus before we introduce him and bring him onto the session. Okay, so Marcus works as a business intelligence developer at KUMAVISION AG, one of the world's largest implementation partners for Microsoft Dynamics. He is a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, also known as MVP, for the data platform, and loves to inspire others with his solutions. His mission is very clear, and that's to get the most out of data with Power BI. So, Marcus, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for
Welcome.
the introduction.
No problem at all. How are things over there in Germany at the moment?
Very well.
Excellent. And we're absolutely loving the Power BI t-shirt as well that we were discussing offline. So yes, we got to see that. Perfect. Well, we're looking forward to your session today. So what we'll do is we'll hand over. I'm just going to introduce your screen. So we can see your screen now. And like I say, enjoy your session and thank you very much once again for joining us.
Thank you. So just another slide, a slide of me. I'm Marcus Wegener. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm a Power BI super user, and you can find me on different platforms, so as LinkedIn and Twitter. On Twitter, I have an own blog. I write there some articles, mostly in German. But if you are interested, I think you will find something interesting for you on my blog post. Today's sessions is about Datamarts and where are coming this knowledge from. This is the source of the community. I have read many blog posts, videos, and I try to wrap up all the things, and then we can explore the Datamarts together. I want to start with some statements I found in the communities. One is here from Guy in the Cube. Power BI Datamart is really about self-service data analytics. So it's this idea of bridging the gap between business and business users and IT when it comes to databases. So we see the Datamarts have something to do with databases, and there is something about the gap between the business users and the IT. So these are the important things here in the statement. Then another statement from Matthew Roach. Power BI data marts are like data flows with benefits. So it seems to be very similar to data flows. And I find this very interesting by Casper de Jong. Datamarts is a full managed SaaS service, no code requirements to do an end-to-end analytics process. So we have a no code, low code experience, and it's about the end-to-end analytics project inside of Power BI. So let's talk a little bit or a small look on the gap between the business and the IT. So if it comes on, or we have this on the business side, so it's something with good feeling, expert opinions, and Excel-based reporting. Then we have, or mostly a gap And then we are in the IT side where we have all the cool stuff about data warehouse and enterprise BI. This gap is we try to fill up with our self-service BI tools, and with Power BI we have started all the things, and when it's now comes to database, the new Datamart should fill more and more this gap between business and IT solutions. So we hear this word data mart, and there are so many other words in the room, like data mart, database, data warehouse, data lakes. What does all these things mean? I have prepared this overview, so you can see on the left side we have our raw data. All this raw data is like raw material. We will pump this through the data pipelines, uh, control the data preparation with something like a data factory, bring the data in a data lake, which is a mass storage of data like a silo. Then we will make our data products and store this in our data warehouse. It's like a real world warehouse with all the products inside. And from this data warehouse, we can ship this data maybe through a data flow, or the data flow which is inside the data mart, to our data mart, which is a specialized subset of the data, like a specialized store with a store place, which is our database, and all the retail shelves of our data products inside the tables. If you think on this area, there could be some other sources with special goods. Also, these goods can be stored in our data mart. And if you think about small companies, they maybe have not really a data warehouse. They only have special sources and create their own data storage as a data mart. So let's have a closer look to these components. So we start some years ago with Dataflows. In the Dataflows, we have our sources on the left side. We have an Power Query online experience, where we create our data transformations. These transformations and data are stored in a Azure Data Lake, Gen 2. This could be the internal Power BI data lake or your own data lake, which you're bound to your working area. If you activate your premium workspace on this thing, you can have better opportunities during the caching option. So you can activate the enhanced compute engine with optimize your queries against the data flows, and you can start with some machine learning capabilities. So just to wrap this up, the benefits of a data flow is that you have reusable ETL package, that you can decoupling the data sources, you can have different schedules for this, you can implement an incremental refresh on this. You use the Azure Data Lake with the CDM folder structure and have the benefit of the machine learning capabilities. For some of these capabilities, you need the premium features so that you can use the enhanced compute engine, the direct query, can use computed entities on the data flows, and the linked entities. It's also the incremental refresh. So if we go now a step further and look to the data mart is a premium only feature. In this data mart, we have our source system on the left side. We also have the Power Query part. In the past, I was able to see that there was a storage of the model JSON of the data transformation inside the data lake Gen 2. Nowadays, today I have seen they don't no longer show this file inside of the data lake. So there are some changes here. The data itself are stored in an Azure SQL database. On this Azure SQL database, you can define role level security. The Datamart also provide a dataset is connected with a direct query connection to our Azure SQL database. On this dataset, we can also add relationships and measures. The benefit of this is that we now have an web authorization, an end-to-end web authorization. So we can start with the data load to the data modeling up to the report building, all in the web browser. This is very interesting also for Mac user. We in the actual phase we can use 10 gigabyte of 100 gigabyte of storage. I think it's nearly the same like the dataset in the premium capacity. So one Datamart can grow up to 100 gigabyte. This Datamart can be connected via SQL with different tools. We have row-level security directly inside our database, and there are some capabilities to have B2B sharing on this data SQL side. So let's us take over to the real life presentation, to the demo side. I only want to mention that this feature is still under preview, so features may be incomplete or will be changed in the future. And here are some limitations on the from the Microsoft side. So I want to point out there is something here depending on the supported SQL clients. At the moment, Microsoft only supports Management Studio and Azure Data Studio as an SQL client on this Datamarts. You have some restrictions of the availability in some areas, and as if I have seen here, this part that the data mass is not available in workspaces that are bounded to an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account. It is not right. I have tested. It will run, if you will see in the presentation. So I want to share my tenant. So we are here in my environment. I'm in a workspace with Power BI, which is assigned to Power BI Premium per user. And if I press this button here on the top, we will see we have the Datamart as preview and we have the data flow. If you click on data flows, you will see that Microsoft is give you a notice that the new Datamart preview feature is there. It's very near to the data flow experience, and they want to try this out. So let's create a Datamart. Now in the background, they will provisioning SQL database for us. And I hope in some seconds we will see the screen that the database is available. And you see here our entry point. I think it's very close to a Power BI desktop file. We have here our get data, and we have the popular data sources in the middle so that we can start directly from here to import data to our Datamart. So I will choose the Excel file experience. So now we can connect to a SharePoint or OneDrive. It's very cool that you can click here on the Browse button for your OneDrive. You get a new window with your OneDrive folders. So I choose my Adventure Work Excel file and say next. We get the navigator with all the tables inside my Excel workbook. So we will choose in this demo the customer table, the date table you see on the right side. There is also the preview, the product, and the sales table. and go to transform data. Now you see the Power BI query online. This is also very close to the Power BI desktop experience. We have our queries on the left side and our applied step on the right side. In the middle, you see the data. And I don't want to make so many changes in this field. I only want to show you that on the date table, we have some issues with the auto date type detection. So we have to change here the column from date to text, because it don't make sense to have 3 times the same date format in our query. So replace the current. So if our data are well formatted, we can press save, and this data will be loaded to our SQL database in the Datamart. You see here are some steps. On the bottom of the window, if the data are loading, you can go back to your workspace and can load the data in the background. But I think it's not so many data here in my Excel file, so it only takes some seconds or some minutes to load the data, and then we can go on in the Datamart. So after the data are loaded to the Datamart, you come back to a window experience which is very close to the data view inside of the Power BI desktop. You will see this little icon, or you will be comfortable with this little icon here on the end. So we see here are all our tables, and we can switch between the tables and see the data inside. We can also filter it like in Power BI Desktop over the column headers. And so let us switch to the next ribbon. The next ribbon here on the bottom of the window is the design window. This is something which is new with or coming with Datamarts. So you are able now to have a visual query designer. So if you drag your tables in the middle of the canvas, you will see we get a visual representation of our query. On the bottom, you see they will show us the result of this query. And now you could add some more information. So we add the product table. We can merge these 2 tables together. I will select the product here. I select the product key in the right table, and on the left side, I will also select the product key. You can select one of the different join types and say, okay. You will see we get a new step here in our visual representation of the view, and also a new column in the result side or in the area. So we will add to our sales table the category and set category, so and expand this query and see the new result. And now we can also add and group by and give us the sum of sales amount of the sales amount column. And here it is. We have the result. Interesting things that come up with since my last presentation of this session. is that we now able to store or save the existing queries here in the left side. We can rename our query tab here so that we can say, okay, sum of sales. We can add new visual queries here on the bottom. And we are now able to export the result to Excel from the visual editor. So if you press this button, open in Excel, you will download an Excel file. One important thing of this Excel file is that the data are not directly in this Excel file. Instead of this, you get an empty Excel file with a query inside. It's a Power Query. You see, I have a protected view because the Microsoft Defender is checking this file or verified this file from the sources. And here there is a small field with my query inside. And I hope if we can enable the editing after the check and load the enable the content, you get the question from Power Query here if he can is allowed to run this native database query against our Datamart. If you press run, let me see here, and use my so I have to log into with my Office credentials or Microsoft credentials. And then we have our data inside our Excel file. The cool thing of this is inside this Excel file, we now can refresh the data every time and we don't have to export it again and again. So we can easily keep up to date with this Excel file. Okay, let us go back to the Datamart side. Another ribbon on the button is this SQL query. So you are able here also to add some own or queries by your own. I have prepared something in my presentation. So let me copy that from the right slide. So here. So here I can enter an SQL query. There's also an intelligence inside this window and can run this against my Datamart and I get the result here. We can also rename this query and save this on the left side. So we rename this as sales amount by country. We'll come through this later. The last icon here on the bottom is our model view. So this is one of the most important things we know inside our Power BI desktop. So in this view, we can combine all these tables, make the relationships and so on. So let us drag and drop the connection between these tables. So one thing I want to show you should be careful with is dropping the key column from your dimension table through the fact table, because this dialog don't really detect the many side and the key side of the dimension. So if you see here, the table 1 is my dimension, the product, and my table 2 is my sales table, my fact table. But the cardinality is set to many to one. So this is in this case wrong. You should cancel this and come from the fact table. So we use the product key and drop this on my dimension. And now you see we have as table 1, this effect table, as table 2, the product table, and that is right for the many to one connection. And so we can confirm this. So always keep in mind the detection of the cardinality and the right filter direction is not so good inside of the Datamart as in Power BI Desktop. So I will connect the other tables with my fact tables. So where's this order date key here? Is it on the date key? And the due date key on the date key. Oh, come on. And at least the ship date key on the date key. So there are other things we can do in this model view. One thing is we can also disable the visibility of columns inside Power BI Desktop for this references. We can, or we have on the right side our property panel where we can change the formatting and all these things we normally do in Power BI Desktop. If we select something like the months column here in the date table, we are also able to change the sorting by the months key. So this is very close to Power BI Desktop, and we should be able to create measures inside the web. So this was something what we was not able to do in the web experience from Power BI. So we create a measure sum of sales amount, and if you will see, the intelligence is also here. So we want the sales I have to type the right thing. The intelligence gives me the right opportunity. So we have now here our measure inside our data model from Power BI. Let me have a shot. Yeah, okay. Another thing we can do here in the model area is that we can add some roles, role level security on this data model. If you press on this button, manage roles, you can create your own new role. So I want to create a role which only shows the data from Germany. Important thing, press the accept change button here. Then this information is in our customer table. I will add a new definition. The customer region should be equal Germany. And I hit save to save my role level security. You will have seen that this is another other experience than in Power BI Desktop. In Power BI Desktop, we normally write our role level security with DAX statements. So you don't have here this are more static role level security rules, because this role level security also apply to the SQL database, complex role level security, wisdom or dynamic role level security is actually not available here in Power BI, in the Power BI Datamart. on top, we can change the ribbon to assign so that we can assign this rule to another user. I leave it this window here, and we will test our role level security. In that case, that we press here the view as role, select our role Germany, and switch back to our SQL query. So if we now run our SQL query, you will see the role level security takes in place, and we only get our values for the country region Germany. So this as a small introduction inside of, or exploring inside of the Datamart. Now let us see how we can connect to our Datamart with another tool. I forgot something. If you are inside the Datamart, you see here the name on the top. You can change the name of your Datamart here. So I will do UK. So if we change this and go back. Okay, let me refresh this. This is something which can happen during the. Okay. This should be one way to rename it. The other way is here on the side. Press rename it here. So if we want to connect to our data warehouse with another SQL client, you can go to the settings of your Datamart. Under the settings, you will find the server settings. Here you can copy the connection string. And I forgot to open the Management Studio client. So let us start this. And then we will copy this server's setting connection string to our SQL Management Studio. I think we need some seconds. Other thing you can edit here are your schedule refresh to update your studio automatically, your Datamart automatically. Okay, here is my SQL Management Studio. So here in the connection dialog, I can insert my URL. I can change the authorization to Azure Active Directory authorization and use my username, connect to the Datamart. Okay, now he wants my password. Okay. So we are now connected to the Datamart SQL database. We see here's our Datamart database. Inside of the database, we will not find any tables. So not the tables. Instead of, we will see our model and our data under views. We can query these views with analysis with our Management Studio. So we see here we get our result, and if you use the option to create a script from this view, you will see that this view is referring to an object, a database object, which is named storage customer. So we have a view model customer, which is accessible from our SQL client, and we see here all the information are loaded from the storage customer table, which are not directly accessible for us. So this is something we can see and learn here. So let me just have a short look on my guidance through this presentation. So we have seen the direct connection. We have also make our data model. And now let us consume the data via the report creation part. So we have now here two objects inside our workspace. One is our Datamart and the other is our auto-generated dataset for this Datamart. So we can hit the three dots button here and can create a new report on this Datamart. So in this case, I want to create some little charts. So we use our customers and show the sales amount by customer. We make a bar chart. We see a lot of values are on the part of or on the element of the non-applicable. So we will filter this out and have a more change in this data. We add another chart to this and we'll look through the data through the products. So we see which products we have sold, and add another chart to this area. And let us take a look after which in which months we have sold this. So you see it's working quite well. Well, you can click on the different products and it will update all the data with our direct query experience. So we have really an end-to-end analysis solution. We have created a data connection inside the Power BI service. We have created a model in the Power BI service. And now we also have created a report inside the Power BI service. So we save this report. UK. And take another look to this settings. So something you will notice is that on the dataset, your options are less than normal because we have already seen that the scheduling is and other settings will be done via the Datamart. So if we go to the setup page, we are now in the Datamart ribbon and can schedule our data refresh. But if you change the ribbon here to dataset, we also have our automatic generated dataset here. And under server settings, we also see our XML endpoint. But if we copy this string and try to use such tools such as Studio, connect. Okay, I have to authenticate myself again. You see we get an error message that we are not able or don't have the permission to access the tabular model from this auto-generated data set. So how can we make some change to this data set, or how can we connect to this data set? One thing is we can go to our Power BI desktop. Here we have this new icon or this new area, the data hub. Under the data hub, we can select our data marts. We get a list. We should get the list maybe. 1 second here. Of all our available data marts, we use this we have created before. And on the end of this dialog, we can choose if we want to connect directly to the existing data set, or if we want to make a connection to our SQL endpoints. So I will choose in the first time the live connection to our data set. So we see here there is, or the fields will be loaded into the Power BI desktop, and we can now, or we would be now able to create a report. One interesting thing could be that we say, okay, we want to use the opportunity to make a composite model and change here the connection to a direct query connection. But if you see, okay, add a local model, but something which is coming up here is that we are not able to do this because we don't have the permission to access our tabular model directly. So another way is that we start with a blank file, and say, okay, go to the data hub. We select our data mart. And instead of using the live connection to the auto-generated data set, we make an SQL connection to the SQL endpoint. From this time, the experience is very, okay, I have to add my credentials, is very near to the SQL connections. So it's connection to the database. We get a navigation window. We can select here the database. Inside our data mart, we see we have some tables with metadata for the relationships, and we can select our tables which we have loaded to our data mart. I will press transform and data, and now we can select that we want to import this data in our Power BI dataset. You see here we have our schema name in front of our tables, so I would recommend to remove this in the naming of the tables. You also can see here that the Datamart gives you the possibility to see the references to the other tables inside of this query. So he automatically connects these connections. I would remove this if you want to. If you want to load this to the Power BI desktop. So I only want to have these fields. My last click. Come on. I hit the wrong button. What removes? No, never mind. So you can remove these fields and press close and apply. This data will load to your Power BI desktop, and then you can create your own data model on this data directly from the Datamart. Let me do this. Close and apply. Something I have learned during the preview period is that sometimes this one will run on a failure. Just try it again, and you will see one time it will load completely. I hope this is something, or I'm sure that this is something that will be improved in the future. Okay, just a small look at on my guide through the presentation. So we have seen a lot of things so far. Something new I have seen today was inside of the web portal. So if you have created the relationships inside of the model view, you also can use this in your Visual Query Editor. So if we drop now the sales table inside the Visual Query pane, you will see in this area that the Datamart already knows the connections between the different tables, and so you can directly expand here the table and show the information inside the Visual Query. Other things I want to mention or bring to you is, if you think about the DAX side or the DAX part of Datamarts. Oh, I think you have problems with the model view at the moment. You are actually only able to create DAX measures inside a Datamart, and you are not able to view the results directly inside the Datamart. You always have to create or go outside of this browser and create a report to check the results. The other thing is you are not able to create DAX calculated columns, and also not able to create DAX calculated tables. So for me, if you want to get more information about Datamarts, I want to recommend different sources to you. One part is from Kerbal. What is Datamarts? It's a YouTube video which explains the basic concept of a Datamart, or the theoretical concepts of the Datamart. We have Matthew Roach, which make a blog post, Dataflows with benefits. Then you will find the podcast from Casper de Jong, Casper on BI, What's Datamart, which gives a good introduction on this. Guy in the Cube had made several videos on this. You will find a series of videos by Reddercat. There are other MVPs which makes good talks of this. You can find it on YouTube, or you can find the presentation on GitHub. There's a mechanic video where Chris shows the Datamarts in Power BI, and right now, simply very new Melissa codes make a new overview diagram on the Power BI Datamarts. So take a look on this, and it's very interesting. So thank you for your time. I hope you find interesting this session. And if there are any questions, I'm here and I try to answer it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Marcus. Absolutely fantastic session. And it's so good to see the progress being made by the Power BI team as well in such a short space of time on Datamarts. We do have some questions coming in. I'll pose one first and then hand over to Pragati. So our first question comes in from Russell. And Russell asks, can you still do your dev work in desktop and then cut and paste query steps into the online Power Query, as he finds Power Query Online a bit clunky to use?
Yeah, this seems to work. I don't have tried it, but it should be possible. It's should be the same query online experience like in Dataflows, and there I know it's possible just by copy and paste the objects and copy it back to the online web browser. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then the next question, I'll hand over to you, Pragati.
Yeah, so the next question comes from Francisco. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Can the merge of a table be saved and used in a new similar table? Thinking in automate a report made from two tables.
Can the merge of the table saved and used in a new similar tables? I'm not so sure if I understand this question.
Francisco, can you please elaborate on this question? Because it's a little unclear to us. I mean, in the meantime, you can just reiterate your question on the chat. I can go to the next question.
Yeah, because you have this query section inside of Datamart, and they will save your queries here, and then you can execute them again. But it's not so that they create a view of this queries and that you can directly reuse them. I think the visual representation of the queries is very new inside of our BI Datamart. I have seen some screenshots where it also was possible to get the SQL statement out of this visual representation of the query, but it's not available at the moment here in my version of the Datamart, but you can copy this SQL query out of the Excel connection where it's stored for the Power Query side. And yeah, at the moment we have only a read access to the Datamart part, so it's also not possible to create own views inside of the Datamart. But maybe in the future it could be happens. Yeah.
Leon, would you like to take the next question?
Excellent, thank you. So the next question comes in from Ali, and Ali asks, is it possible to implement object level security, so OLS, in Power BI Datamarts, so they can prevent some users from having access to some tables and some columns?
At the moment, I have not seen something like that. I don't see any menu of it, maybe in the future, but until now, I don't know that there's something in this area. Yeah.
Thank you, Marcus, and I'll hand back to Pragati.
So the next question comes from Jose. When we connect to the Datamart, the queries that we have created, such as sales by country, are not available.
Yeah. So this is only like a workbook or something else inside of the Datamart. You cannot connect with an SQL client to this or with Power BI and use or try to reuse this. So this would be something if they store this like a view. So if I can use when this query would be a view, then it would be possible to reuse it with something like Power BI Desktop or something else. But this is only more like an SQL client in the browser, so you don't have to install Azure Data Studio or SQL Management Studio to query this database. It's easy way to access this database.
I think there's just another question that came in. Maybe we can go with this. Can we create Datamart on Power BI service and use that for multiple reports?
Yeah, that's possible. So at the first time you create a data, or during creating a data mart, you also get this auto-generated data set, but you can connect directly to the SQL layer with Power BI Desktop and create your own data set and can use all the features like this dynamic row level security thing inside your Power BI desktop model and upload this again to the service. And from that time, all the data sets should very close to the normal data set. I think there are some disadvantages now, so that you don't can make composite model or a direct query to Power BI dataset and analysis services at the moment on this auto-generated datasets, but I think it will come in the future. And also in this diagram by Melissa Coates, I can't open it right now. There was also mentioned this possibility to create an composite, where it is here. So she already shows the possibility to use data sources with the inside Dataflows, store the data in the Datamart database. We have here our auto-generated dataset, and then to extend this dataset with the composite model and make multiple reports on that. So I think it will come in the future as something which only don't work in the preview mode. Yeah. Right. Very.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we have just put into the chat our anonymous feedback form. So as every session, we ask you to feedback in terms of sessions you'd like to see from us in the future. So please do take 10 seconds or so to just fill that out for us. I'll just go into our next question, which comes in from Vinod. And they ask that they believe at this point, Biz Central datasets cannot be set to incrementally refresh. Will it be possible to create a data mart pulling data from Biz Central and have it incrementally refreshed in the future?
Biz Central. I'm not sure if I know this application or if this our Business Central only with a shorter version of connection. I'm not sure. There's something I never have tested that there is the possibility to make incremental refresh with the data mart, so you can see it. I think you should see it here on the top. So there's something preparated. I never have tested. Maybe in the future we will see. But yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I think by the looks of it, that's actually all of our questions for today's session. It appears that, like I say, a lot of people are giving great feedback. So Javier mentions good session. Russell S. has mentioned it's been a fantastic session as well. So Marcus, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us. And hopefully we can have you back with us again in the future as well.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, Marcus, it was an amazing session, basically. Thanks
Thank you.
for coming to
Thanks a
me.
lot.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody as well for joining us in today's session. We will be back next week with another amazing session brought to you by myself and Pragati. And we'll be back with 2 MVPs next week. So not just one next week, we'll be back with 2 MVPs for their session as well. So this session, as always, has been brought to you in association with Pomerol as well. And you could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us at the Microsoft Power BI UK User Group.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And we look forward to hosting you next week as well.